Hello to you, Michael, in California, and here I am in the West Midlands, UK, and welcome to the gift today. Now, Michael, you have a lovely gift of communication because you are such a good communicator and you have a really good rapport with people. So, what makes you a good communicator?
I think that the number one thing is, if you go back to the story in the Bible with one of the messengers,
Okay.
he was a fast runner, and one king sent him to give a message to another king, and he ran so fast that he passed up the first messenger because he was a fast runner.
Yeah.
And when he got to the king says, "Oh, you brought a message. What's the message?" And he's like, "I don't know. I just made it before the other messenger." So the moral of that analogy is if you're going to be a messenger, it doesn't matter how talented you may be or how skillful you may be, you better have a message.
Yeah.
So to have a message, have something to say,
Yeah.
is the number one thing.
And that's a great point, actually, Michael. Yeah, you need a message to say, don't you?
Yeah,
So,
but the challenge is to make it sound interesting.
of course. Yeah, of course.
And I in my own opinion of myself, I don't think I'm really that interesting. I kind of I kind of go with the flow, and it turns out to be a little more comedic than serious sometimes.
Well, Michael, I know that you have your own podcast. And so, therefore, you must do a lot of research and prep ready to engage your listeners. I mean, would you agree?
I would agree. I do a tremendous amount of research, and then by the time that I'm able to get down to the brass tacks of doing it, it's almost as if I literally have to depend wholly on the Holy Spirit's guidance, and it doesn't really go according to my notes. If I was a professional with a production team, because I've researched all of my favorite podcasts, news podcasts, Christian podcasts, and they all have like 12 people doing research for them.
Wow.
And even on the radio stations, I used to think that they were witty and they were on the edge.
Yeah.
And one of the guys slipped on a radio show. You know, they've got 3 hours to, keep people on their radio listening. And the guy says, "Well, I'm just reading what they gave me with the way the director told me to."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, wow, it's not really from off the cuff."
No, it's not like that, is it?
I don't have a
sure.
production team. It's just me, myself, and I.
Yeah, and I think you're
3
good
people,
at
me,
speaking
myself, and I.
well, you're good at speaking off the cuff, and that's what makes you a great communicator as well. So, Michael, you have your podcast. So, what resources would you say have actually helped you along the way?
Oh, I've been pondering that lately.
Okay.
The most helpful resources, I would say, is a brand new one called Anchor.fm. So if you type in Anchor.fm, it'll take you to the podcast source. That's a new one, and it's owned by Spotify. So Spotify now has 2 main podcast platforms, Spotify and Anchor. The other one would be Spreaker.com. Those are the most helpful 2 that I'm able to create podcasts on. And the most helpful platform that Spreaker.com auto-generates to is iHeartRadio. Do they have iHeartRadio in the UK?
I'm not sure. Is the answer to that.
But that has more than a majority of radio stations on their platform. So if I'm driving through Oklahoma, I could tune in to at least a few radio stations in that state and get the current news from where I'm at.
Wow, that's amazing. And what advice would you give to someone wanting to present a podcast? You're a good person to ask.
I would advise them to go to Spreaker.com, and I wish I could get royalties from them. I'm not advertising for them, but Spreaker.com is the most useful platform. And any podcast platform, you have to get to know it so you can operate it. But I would go to Spreaker.com, and I would suggest that they have the time and the energy to put in the effort.
Yes. Yeah.
If they want to do something that their goal is to be viral.
Okay. So what would you say then were your goal objectives?
With podcasting, my goal objective is to be as effective for the gospel that I can, given the situation that I'm in as being part of the workforce. If you read business magazines, we learn how important we are being in the workforce, whether it's production, factory, farming, the food industry, retail, whatever part of the economy you're working for, punching in a clock or, writing your time down.
Yeah.
So that would be, what was the question again? I get lost.
What is your goal objective?
Given my circumstances, my goal objective is to be just as effective for the gospel that I can.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
That's good. And so, Michael, are there any resources or advice that has helped you with your journey so far?
The resources for my journey, notwithstanding podcasting, has been ministry organizations, mainly first responder and critical response Christian versions. To where if I have the time, if I have a couple of weeks to spare, I would go with the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association to disaster sites.
Wow. And
sleep on a cot, sleep in a basement somewhere, or sleep in a Kmart. I've done all of those. I've slept in a gym, a community college gym. And I slept in a parsonage, a church's property home. It's like a guest home. Sometimes the pastors live in the parsonage. So I would go to a disaster response. But those have been my most prolific resources.
Yeah.
So when you continue the gospel.
Yeah. When you go to these disaster areas, what is it really like? Because you're actually there. We can imagine, but what do you think it's really like?
It's very heartwarming in many ways, and it's full of profound situations. Like one situation that I was in Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
And it was in the city of Shreveport. And we were able to go in the city after another hurricane. They got hammered twice. And I went there after the two. And there was a business owner, and he requested aid from Franklin Graham's Samaritan's Purse organization, and I was a chaplain with the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team.
Okay.
Well, I was to interview the store owner, the business owner, to get his address and what happened, how many people were going to be having over at his home. And he couldn't use his hands.
Wow.
And he had to write with his foot. So at the end, I says, okay, if you could just sign your name right here. And he grabbed a pen with his toes and did his signature.
Amazing.
And I had poker face. It didn't faze me a bit. And as they say, there was no wrinkle in his eyebrows.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was a very profound, and that stuck with me on, wow, this is awesome. It's just awesome. You never know who you're going to meet.
No, exactly.
And then there were salvation instances also.
Can you
ministering challenges.
Tell us about one of them then.
One of them was with the man. He was probably 40, 41 years old. And before Hurricane Katrina, the month before that happened, his wife died of cancer. And then a month later, Hurricane Katrina happened and his home was destroyed. So when I went there, it was actually a year after Katrina happened. And it was after one that got Louisiana and Texas. And it was horrible. It was called Hurricane Rita. So people could web search Rita, Hurricane Rita. And he looked horrible. No smile, no expression on his face, lost eyes. His stare was just lost. And a young man from a church that was ministering, the same place where we were ministering, him and I spoke to this guy. And the young man, he was probably 23 years old, and I may have been about 44 at the time. I'm not sure, but I'm 57 now. He's the first one to say, "Would you like to ask Jesus into your heart?" And he says, "Sure, I will." So we prayed for his salvation, and then all of a sudden, it's just like so many testimonies. He felt a weight lift him, and he felt an overwhelming sense of joy. And his countenance literally changed from stony and a lost stare to a gleam in his eye and an appearance of joy and smiling. And he says, I haven't smiled for a whole year.
Wow.
So that was a blessing.
Yeah, that is an amazing story. That really is of a transformation.
He could have grown into a hard heart, a root of bitterness. Who knows?
Exactly.
Without somebody to be with them to listen.
Yeah, that's an amazing story of how the Lord can change somebody's life. So, Michael, what would you say inspires you?
What inspires me are people such as yourself and your father-in-law, Pastor D.B. Polton, and Paul. You pour out your hearts daily. And so people who are not afraid to pour out their hearts or to share or to be apt to teach is very inspiring, because I've been in the Lord since 1989, 30 plus years, faithfully.
Yes. After
a 10-year backslide, and I still seek messages. It used to be cassettes and CDs.
Yeah.
And now we have the internet, and I still have to find what people have to say concerning the Lord. We all need encouragement. So people who are apt to share is very inspiring.
Yeah, I would agree with
and that
you.
may be why I'm so interested in podcasting.
Yeah, and your podcast, I've listened to them, and I can say they are really good, and they sort of captivate you, when you listen to them as well. And I think that is lovely when somebody wants to listen to them. You want to be captivated by what that person or persons are saying. So, Michael, how can people, your listeners, listen to your podcasts?
I would have them go to a web search and just type in Michael DT, the Lookout Guy. And as you scroll through the results, you'll see the URLs, the websites of various different podcasts, and one of them may be one that they already have an account with.
Great. That sounds really good. So people can listen to you. Michael, thank you for joining me for the gift today. And what a gift you have. A wonderful communicator for the Lord. So thank you for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Michael. That was great, Michael. That was really great. You know, you are so good with communicating, and it really is a gift that the Lord has given you, don't you think?
Yeah, and I'm glad I didn't explain how my podcast is, because as of now, it's still not with the goal of being viral, because I don't have the time and effort to actually do it proper.
Yes.
Like a proper podcast, but I'm kind of